At the beginning of September, I recorded a TBR. It was pretty aggressive, but I wanted to see if I could stick to it and pull it off. Well, here's a summary of how September went, and I got the stack of books right beside me. I'm going to be talking about them in the order that I read / finished them. I think some of them I was doing at the same time, but for the most part, I would focus on one, get it done, and move on to the next, which is something I generally do not do, which is probably why I don't finish as many books as I was able to finish in September without spoiling. So here we go. First one up is that, I had already started this one at the end of August somewhere, but I finished it at the beginning of September, and we have Piers Anthony's Spell for Chameleon. I recorded a vlog earlier on where I had just pulled these out of a storage box when I was removing back into this place, and I found 10 books of Piers Anthony, 1 to 9 and 13 or something like that, or 14, I forget what book it was. I had never read Piers Anthony. I had never read the Xanth series, and I wanted to go to a bunch of thrift shops in order to find a bunch more of these books, because I remember seeing a lot of them. Like they would constantly appear back in the day. That's where I got all of these. I got them at the thrift shop that I ended up returning to, which there are a bunch of vlogs on the channel now of me having returned back to the thrift shops. Now, I didn't find many more of the Xanth series novels, but I'll get into why I probably won't be picking them any more up. I'll give you a summary of the 4 that I read in September, starting with A Spell for Chameleon. Did I think that the world building was interesting? Yes. Did I think that some of the wordplay kind of stuff was fun? Yes. Was it misogynistic and sexist? Absolutely. I think I've described it to folks as basically you being aware of the train wreck, but you just stay on for the ride. And that's pretty much what I committed to, because I have at least 1 to 9 I would like to eventually get through, but I might not pass that. I'm not sure. Anyways, let me stay on the track. Let me stay on the rails. I've read reviews on Goodreads, and there are a lot of 5-star reviews of people who have very fond memories of reading this while they were a child in the 80s, maybe even early 90s, but that they hadn't returned to the Xanth series as an adult reading the books. And I think that's really where you're gonna get that jarring kind of shakeup in the language. This was written in the late 70s, so it's not like it's of the era. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that sort of can get more easily excused possibly if you're kind of into literature and you can like separate yourself from the times and the work, so that you can enjoy the work for what it is in the modern times, regardless of the past times. You get what I'm saying? Anyways, but there's just enough kind of odd ways of describing the female characters, especially the underage ones. It starts to repeat enough where it actually does get a little bit uncomfortable, because you're like, if it was in the point of view of the character, you're like, it's probable, like that's what the character's thinking, so that's what we're reading. We're reading the character's, description of certain things. But then you're like, yeah, but it's like every character sort of describes females that way, and they're underage, and it's like it gets to a point where you're like, it just gets to the point where it starts to detach me from the reading experience, because I'm thinking about the author, if you catch my drift. And so 3 out of 5 stars. It's not like it's not a terrible book. It's an okay book. I enjoyed it. It was actually fun. Fun enough that I read the second book, A Source of Magic, and I actually thought this was a lot of fun. Like they're just fun, and I'm like, maybe he'll tone down on some of the way that he's handling the female characters. Again, if it happens here and there and it's a product of its time, man, listen, I can excuse quite a bit when it comes to books. Like I really can. But again, it becomes jarring because it's persistent. It's so often that it's really hard to stay in the story. Now, to deviate off of that topic, there's also something else he starts to do more and more of, which I thought was amusing in the first book. I still thought it was actually pretty fun in this one. It's the wordplay. Like, the world of Xanth is pretty much like, if you can think of any sort of word finagling, things that are called by something, but the double meaning of the word could make it be something else. I'm trying to think of they're all over the place, and I can't think of any damn example. This one's not in the book, but I remember the tabletop group back 20 years ago kind of making fun of this, because in an adventure it might say that the door is ajar, because the door's open, the door is ajar, right? But in the world of Xanth, if you read something that says the door is ajar, it will very literally be ajar. And then the prose kind of evolves from there, okay? And so that's kind of the example I'm giving, where the wordplay is kind of amusing. It's like dad joke prose. It's how I would explain it. I think the characters are also a lot of fun. And the idea behind this story was actually pretty epic. The source of magic very literally does mean like the source of magic that behind all of Xanth. And it's like, I'm going to just spoil it, okay? It's like a demon. I mean, I won't spoil the details of it. They get to the source of magic. They definitely get there. Now, you do see a griffin here. That's actually a character called Crombie. It's like it's kind of like an incel warrior. that gets transformed into a griffin to go on the adventure with Bink, and that's his centaur friend Chester. And they're all fun characters. They have this encounter with this dragon. This is actually early on. The idea of this is very good. I did rate it a 2 out of 5 stars because of the stuff I just talked about earlier. The female descriptions and the oddness of the language that can't separate me thinking of the writer writing the prose when describing underage females. Like that, it did get creepy. It did. I'll admit it. This was the train wreck. The first one was sort of like, you're probably on a train wreck, but you're like, maybe it's just an oopsie doopsie from the first book. No. It's pretty committed to here. There's characters that get introduced here. There's like a rock nymph that, man, look, I'm not going to get into it. You're going to have to look into these yourself. My point is that this is like, it got too overwhelming that it actually removed me from the epicness of the story, because it was so prolific that I really had a hard time keeping my head inside the prose. And so 2 out of 5 stars with this one. Because I didn't want to DNF the entire series, I wanted to DNF. I had to switch gears. So I went to the Hounds of Baskerville, Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And this was my attempt to go back to some of that older pulpy or gothic horror literature, classic horror stuff, because because I was collecting these older books. This one's in really bad shape, but I was collecting these older books like 30 years ago. Read a few of the short story anthology ones, but I never really got to like the staples, the ones like I knew of the stories, but I've never read the story that I knew the stories of. So I was really looking forward to this one. I thought it would have been better than it was for me. I felt like the prose just didn't land home for me. I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars because the prose was just too rapid, and maybe that's just something from pulp that I just hadn't caught on to. But I'm not sure if like all of Conan Doyle's books are like this, but I didn't really feel captivated along the ride, if that makes sense. Like I felt like things were happening, I was hearing about them, and then I expected greater things, and I like greater reveals, greater tension, not greater tension, because like the tension was there because the prose was so like bang, 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 bang. It was just constantly moving. It was very like almost shorthand prose along the way. The dialogue was very sparse, and dialogue didn't even sometimes tell you who was speaking. Once they started firing off, it was just like every line was just someone saying something, and you kind of just had to like, you better know what 2 people are in that room talking, and the voices themselves would keep you going. But it really wasn't. It just didn't captivate me. Like I'm not asking for purple prose here, right? But it's just, this was too fast. It was too fast, and the ending was entirely underwhelming, is how I would put it. So 2 out of 5 stars. That was my break, because then I returned back to, I realized I did want to go back to the world of Xanth, despite the misogynistic, sexist train wreck that I was on. I couldn't DNF the series. I had to go back. I had to see if that might have minimized a little bit. And now I will have to say, it actually did. Now, did it still happen in this book? Yes. yes. The train wreck was still in play, but I could roll with it. Now, in this one, strangely enough, Bink is the first character of the first 2 books. Okay, he has a son with Chameleon, which is the spell for chameleon is actually a character, a person, and it's a woman that when she's really pretty, she's really stupid. When she's really smart, she's really ugly. And then there's the middle version, and that's Chameleon. Okay, it's a character. That's the magic of the character. But in any case, Chameleon and Bink have a son called Dor. Dor can talk to objects, and the objects will speak back to Dor. And the plot of this one is actually a lot of fun. So he gets sent back into the past via a magical tapestry and gets embroiled in this really epic kingdom-wide battle between the magicians of the time. There was like the zombie master comes into play. Castle Roogna, of course, is the title of the book, but this is like, it makes a major play. The tapestry is in this castle, and the oddness is like, I think Dor is 8 when this book starts, but when he gets transported into the tapestry, he gets transported into the body of an older man, a soldier, and so he immediately becomes a man. And so he's having experiences as a man with this like spider character that joins him, becomes a really good friend, because it's like a tiny spider on the tapestry, but when the magic kicks off, the spider gets sent into the tapestry as well, but becomes like a very large spider. And anyways, he becomes so I think the dynamic between the large spider and Dor becomes really intriguing and interesting, because the spider almost like teaches him how to be a man. There were some really good ideas in here, and it focused more on that stuff than it did derail me on the misogynistic language. Now, it did happen because Dor has a crush on the handmaiden, I guess, of his parents. They're at the house. Her name is Millie. She used to be a ghost, but then at the end of the second book, it's a little bit spoilery. Anyways, she ends up not being a ghost, but in any case, he has a crush on Millie, but he's not a man yet, so he doesn't know what that means. He doesn't know what those feelings mean, but he gets sent to the past, though. So I'm injecting myself here because I derailed, and I want to finish my thought, is that the Millie character, she was a ghost in the prior book. She became an unghost, so, well, alive. She became alive again, okay? And then she ends up helping Bink and Chameleon raise Dor, the child. But Dor, the kid, has a childhood crush on Millie, the not ghost anymore woman. But when he goes back to the past, Millie is alive because it's a couple hundred years in the past in Castle Roogna, and Millie is alive Millie, but Dor is in the body of a man, and then Millie is attracted to the man who's actually Dor inside the man. There's other entanglements with other female characters like the Rock Nymph, but then the Rock Nymph goes to Incel Warrior. And listen, it's very confusing, and it goes back to the same topic I've been harping on, but the point is he comes back to the present, and Millie is alive after the last book where she was a ghost, but in this book she was alive because it was the past. She was in this book. You find out why she becomes a ghost and how she becomes alive again. Is this making it better or worse? But my point is that while reading this book, I was like, oh my god, watch it be that Millie was actually attracted to the adult Dor man, but then it wasn't, because there's this other twist with the zombie master and stuff like that. It was a really awesome twist at the end, which is why this got a 4 out of 5 star. I'm not going to spoil the end of it. There was a very clever rigmarole in the last quarter of the book, and maybe even the last 2 chapters. But I'm derailing within a derailment. I'm going to send you back. There's just, again, language that I feel is odd. Maybe it's just the world of Xanth makes it even more odd because, of course, centaurs are created with human and horse unions. Like, all hybrids in this world are effectively bestiality products. It's just the world. It's just the world. That's what I mean about you have to sign up for the ride, even though you're like, this is on so many levels. It's really straining me to stay, but I loved the story, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 because it kept me just far enough away from the stuff that kept pulling me out of the story that I really enjoyed this. And so this is maybe the only Xanth recommend so far. I really, really enjoyed it. I needed another break, and so I returned back to Gothic horror. I went to The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells, and I did not anticipate this one being as good as it was. I really enjoyed this. It's a really fast read. I thought it would have been long. I had the book, but I mean, I thought the story would have been longer. I actually got worried that this was maybe an abridged version, but when you start reading, you're like, no, this is the story. This is definitely like, this is the full story that I was aware of, because I had an older movie in my collection. I'm pretty sure it was this one. I'm not sure if this was the 70s, but in any case, I really enjoyed it, and I was aware of the story. I like the idea of this. I like the exploration of the whole turning beast to man, and the, again, identity and the duality of that, and the exploration of what does it mean. You can see there's a common theme about some of the horror stuff that I love, especially in Gothic horror. They'll touch on this kind of stuff, but for some reason I didn't expect this to be as compelling as it was, and captivating all the way through. The prose was fluid. Again, it was tight. All the chapters are very small, and it kept things moving in a way that you were always aware of exactly where you were in the story. There was no real deviation. There was a very strong focus on the characters and the evolution of these beast men on this island and what it meant, and there's a spirituality component tied to it, and like a false spirituality in order to keep them in line. And man, there was just so many great ideas in this. So, I mean, it started great. It got right into the action. The middle part, the Act 2, was pretty strong, and then Act 3 just brought it all together. I thought this was like a fascinating read and an unexpected 5 out of 5 star here for The Island of Dr. Moreau. I was very pleasantly surprised. I expected this one to be a 5 out of 5 star book, but it was not. It was I gave it a 4 star. Now, it would have been a 3 star but I really liked certain parts, and that offset the parts that I thought were extremely sluggish, especially for the size of this book. There's a lot of like repetition of prose and ideas. Some of the character development was extremely sluggish, and some of the characters that might have deserved to have had more page time in development, they didn't get it. And I'm keeping my description sort of loose because I released a pretty long review video for Dracula on this channel. It was my first review video on this channel. I'm probably gonna do more of them. It was definitely fun to do and get more granular about my thoughts around what happened in this book and why I thought the pros and cons existed, and why it still got it to a 4 star despite me not liking certain parts quite a bit. It's just that I really, really liked, especially here, that much. I really liked the first quarter of this book. I thought it was like a 6 out of 5 star. So I don't know, crazy math there for reviews, but if you want to check out my deeper thoughts on this, check out the review video on the channel. So we'll move on. That with that gothic horror as a break, I did absolutely return back to the Xanth world with Piers Anthony's Centaur Isle. Strangely enough, I was probably halfway through the book before I realized that the title itself was a play on words that is effectively the entire setup of the first 1 or 2 chapters, where he's got a spelling bee, which is literally a bee. You get where that's why I'm not going to get into the details of this. The point is, that's the kind of language and how language really impacts what things are on the world of Xanth. But the Centaur Isle, by the time I got halfway through the book, I'm like, is maybe the mystery that it's the center Isle? See what I'm saying? Now, center never really came into it, but Isle did. Like, there's a map at the beginning of every book, and where the Centaur are, the Centaur are is Centaur Isle. But there's a Centaur on Centaur Isle, who's a magician, which is not, the Centaur they don't use magic, or they don't admit to having magic, because it's kind of like they'll get exiled and stuff like that. But on Centaur Isle, there's a centaur who can create an isle of magic, which is like a straight corridor where magic will work. And so they have to go back to Mundania. So there's a world outside of Xanth where magic does not exist. It's the real world, if you will. But they got to go back to that world, and they got to bring the centaur along so that they can bring magic with them. And so they bring the Centaur Isle into the Mundania. Anyways, the concepts are very fun, but the prose I felt was very convoluted to try to get some of these ideas across. Arnold the Centaur has to keep all of these people inside the Isle of Magic while they're moving through Mundania, and it's very hard to track what's going on with where these characters are placed in the scene and when they come out and go in, and it's just kind of very hard. So there's Smash right here. He's an ogre son of the ogre in the first 3 books. They befriend an ogre. I think his name is Crunch. And then there's Chet, who's the son of the centaur in the previous books. This is why I do love the idea of this series, because there's like this legacy, and you're following this legacy of characters, and we're only on the 4th book, and there's already like the offspring of the characters from the first 2 books are coming up now. We got Irene, who's the princess, the daughter of King Trent, which is the magician in the first book, who becomes the king, of course, in the second book. And then, man, so it's just great. And then, of course, Irene, and there's Dor and Irene. There's like a thing with them. They're 16 and 15. That's gonna be important in the next couple things I say. Anyways, and on the little shoulder there, you can barely see him. There's a golem in here who's turned real. So think of like Pinocchio style scenario here. And so Grundy, there's Grundy on the shoulder of Chet. In any case, this could have been good. It was too convoluted, like I said, and by God, did every chapter have to talk about Irene's legs? Every chapter, multiple times, did I have to hear descriptions of a 15-year-old's legs or other body parts along the way, especially as Dor and her start getting more intimate and close, because they do have they care for each other and are showing affection, and that could have been such a strong character development between both of them. But every character had to talk about Irene's physical form, especially her legs. And so that might have tapped me out, like, of more Xanth novels, which is unfortunate, because I actually do want to know what child Irene and Dor now give. And so might I be brought back to the world of Xanth just because of my train wreck curiosity? Yes. But I think for now I'm going to tap out. Anyways, I moved back to Gothic horror. I read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I just finished this yesterday, and I just recorded the longer review of this book, which will be up on the channel probably before this one. So check that one out. So I'm not going to go too in depth with my thoughts around this one, but I will say that whereas Dracula was shocked me that it was only a 4 out of 5 when I expected it to be a 5 out of 5, this one I expected to be a 3 or 4 out of 5, and it became a 5 out of 5. And so if you want to know why and how and all, why I'm confused about that grading, the fact that I got there was pretty surprising to me. I mean, I'll spoil some of my review in the sense of this was not the story I thought existed for Frankenstein, where you have an aged Dr. Frankenstein that gives life to this corpse creature, and then the corpse creature just goes on a murdering rampage. That's just not what this story is. The Frankenstein monster is actually quite intelligent and very much a tragic victim of this story. I believe I ended my review with something along the lines of, both Victor and the monster are both villain and victim in the story, but the biggest surprise for me was just how unexpected it was for me to read the actual story of Frankenstein, and the shock of learning that almost all media except for the 1994 film by Bram, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which I thought was just an artsy version of the Frankenstein story. But my memory of it, of Act 2 of that movie is effectively the Act 2 of this, like where Frankenstein is saying what his experience was trying to like discover humanity on his own out there and learning language and stuff like that. And so strangely enough, it brought back those a 30-year-old memory of the movie that I didn't know if I enjoyed. It sort of became forgotten because so much of that other classical monster, Universal Pictures, Frankenstein motif, idea, trope, everything that's almost built on the Frankenstein monster is absolutely not the source material. And so 5 out of 5, absolutely high recommend for people to check this one out. Now, which one did I not finish? And it's September 30th, so the last day of September, and I don't think I'm going to finish it. It's the Dragon Age Tivinter Nights anthology. Now, I got a pretty good run of this in the last couple days because I was going to be on a podcast talking about one of the characters in this book for the upcoming Dragon Age 4 game, and I finally got to it. It was a story called The Wigmaker. For any of you who've read this book, it's for me so far. In this whole read here, Wigmaker featuring Lucanus, the character Lucanus, an assassin, was probably my favorite story so far of this entire anthology, and that's why I took a break because it was yesterday. So I needed to finish Frankenstein, and I just needed a break. I love short stories because I can sit down, read a short story, and then just do something else. I don't have to I don't feel compelled to stay through an entire reading session for hours on end in order to just finish the book because it's a book. I really can just piecemeal it between all of these other books. So once in a while I'd read a story, I'd put it down, and I'd go back to my main read. But I'm really liking this anthology. Here's the thing, if you've played the Dragon Age games, this is a must read. I can't rate it right now because I'm not done the entire anthology, but I'd be very biased to give this a rating because I really love the Dragon Age games. I love the games more as the storytelling and world building that it offers than I do for the meta of it, the gameplay, right? Each game has a different style of gameplay in the evolutions of the IP, but the narrative around those games, the world building, the characters, just how deep and rich this lore is, it's a bias, you know what I mean? So I'm obviously gonna love this book no matter what. Even if I don't think it's amazing, I'm probably gonna love it because I have the context of the rest of the games, And so for someone who doesn't have the context of the games, do I think it's going to be the kind of read you can read and be, oh, I'm in, and I enjoy it? And I don't think so. I'm just gonna shorten. I don't think so. I think this is made for fans of the Dragon Age, and maybe that's true for most novels based on video games. Maybe they're not really meant to be standalone experiences for people, although I don't know why that can't be the case. You should give just enough context in your story so that the story still stands alone, right? And for people who don't have the IP as context. But anyways, I would have to say, really enjoying this. I'm looking forward to finishing it, but it's gonna have to roll into October. Probably not too deep into October, but this is gonna be something I put between the books that I pick up on October. You think that's my stack for September. That's the one, those are the ones I wanted to get through, okay? But yesterday I started Attack on Titan again, so I read volume 1 over, and I did a reading vlog of that because I would like to do the entire series before the end of the year, and so I really wanted to just get some vlog idea out there so I could edit it and see how it feels done and then evolve it as I go. But I'm absolutely going to get back into the Attack on Titan series, and I hope to finish it. So this got finished yesterday, and you'd think my day was over, but no, we got a long weekend here, and so I knew that I could read a little bit late yesterday, and so I started the Hunger Games. I started Suzanne Collins' Hunger Games. I got this from a thrift shop, and that's in one of the vlogs for September when I returned back to the thrift shop just to see if there were book hauls I could pull, and there were, and there have been. I've gone to the same thrift shop twice now. Both of those are vlogs on the channel, and I went to another one out of town, slightly out of town, much less selection, but also came back with 5 books from there. But in any case, Hunger Games, I found all 3 of them with this cover design, and so I picked them up. This is disgusting. I peeled off the sticker of where the tag was. Look at that gook on it. There's glue gook on it, and it's just nasty to hold. I don't know how to remove it. I might take some rubbing alcohol to it, but the book texture itself is just, I'm afraid I'm going to ruin the texture of the book, but this is actually disgusting to touch that spine. In any case, I'm enjoying it. I'm a few chapters in. It feels like a really fast read, to be honest, because the text is very spacious. And so I wasn't patient enough to wait to see what my TBR was going to be like for October, but I kept looking at those stacks across the room from the thrift shops. These 3 books are thin enough where I'm I might be able to pull off the entire trilogy in October. I'll be recording that video sometime during the week where I still have to pick the books I might want to read for October. God damn, this gunk is so disgusting. I'm putting this book down. Jesus. And I'm not sure what other books to pick, but it is October. It's creepy month. And really, I should have kept all these gothic horror books for October instead of jumping into them in September. But hey, what are you going to do? I might still have have some more horror books out there. I mean, I absolutely do, but I'll pick some out. Because I want to jump into Attack on Titan though, I'm gonna have to, and it's gonna have to be aggressive because there are 36 books in the series, and if I want to finish this by the end of the year and I got 3 months left, it means I gotta read like 12 books a month. So now they're faster reads. It only takes me about an hour to read a manga, but I still have to, but there's production time and stuff like that, right? Because then the production time goes higher, because if I want to record 36 videos for 36 manga, that's gonna get out of control very quickly. And I started reading The Wandering Inn. So I'm 3 chapters in. I know this is a massive series, but I wanted to like just probe it because I've been hearing a lot of people on BookTube talking about it. But part of me is like, if I were to do a read of a web serial, I'd like to do content out of it, because it's one of those where there'd be very short like stints. Again, it's not the compel word, right? I wouldn't be compelled to read for 5 hours straight on the web or on my phone or something like that. I would just do one, and then I'd absorb what it's telling me, and I could have like a vlog along the way. Would I do that for every single chapter of Wandering Inn? No, because it looks enormous, and I've seen the word count. It's like the highest word counted world series serial out there or something like that. But it's more like do I need to finish it and catch up? I'm not sure I would commit to something that crazy, especially because I have so many other things I want to read. But as content, I think it'd be fun to sort of go through something like a web serial and then just generate some talk along the way. You know what I mean? Like, just for fans of The Wandering Inn who might want to have someone like live vicariously through someone who's reading it for the first time, because if they're caught up, geez, you've read a lot of words out there, man. Catch up to that. So that one's still a tab up on my browser all the time. Once in a while I'll go there. So anyways, I've done 3, and but now I'm debating like if I do like every 5, do I do a vlog or something? I'm not sure what people would be interested in. I'm sort of just throwing things at the wall with this channel, and I'm okay with that. I think it's a lot of fun to just experiment along the way and not really feel at the mercy of the algorithm, although I am. Everyone is, but I don't really care with this channel. I'm just sort of if I love something, I'm gonna do it, and then if people are interested in it, I'll do more of it, you know. And if they're not, then I'll move on and I'll throw some other stuff at the wall and we'll go from there. Or if I just enjoy doing it, then I'm gonna do it as a vlog, because, you know, that's what I love about vlogs, right? It's like, it's half of the reason for a vlog to exist, in my opinion, is that it'd be for me. Like, I want a faster way to go back and remember my thoughts about something, and so I can just check out one of my old vlogs, that kind of thing. So that's the kind of stuff I'm thinking about going into October. I will do a different video about the plan there when I have some books set aside and I figure something out there. And from a production standpoint, I'll have a better idea of what kind of content now that I could bring more regularly to the channel, now that I've sort of finished my first official TBR. And hey, it was a pretty good run. Like, it's a pretty good run. Like, the only one I didn't finish was Dragon Age Tivinter Nights, and that's a pretty good run, man. And I added the Wandering Inn chapters, and I added in the beginning of Hunger Games, and I've been writing as well. Yeah, I've been working on another project and world Bible building and stuff like that, and so that definitely takes time as well. And so there's a bit of a balance going on here, but it's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to the October TBR. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, but I'm eager to, like, and now that this video is recorded, I get to go and actually think about that for at least a day or two, and I mean, see if I pull it off. This was pretty aggressive. I won't lie. Do I feel like I lost a lot of time reading? No, I feel like I still had some free time. I could have probably read more, but saying that is crazy, because I would like to do more video reviews of books that I read and make that into content along the way, and that's going to take time. So I have to, now I'm in the balancing phase of figuring out where things are going to go, but it has been a lot of fun. Thank you for the newcomers who have come onto the channel. I think there's been 30 subscribers in the last month, over 30 subscribers, which is great. And I hope to bring more content and grow the channel along the way. Thanks for showing up. Don't forget to explore, engage, and inspire, buddy. Peace.